How did a Scottish adventurer manage to sell the world's wealthiest individuals a country that never existed? He had no army, no title, no money, only an audacious idea and a talent for persuasion. Soon, London bankers, generals, and even members of royal families were lining up to invest fortunes in his project. They bought shares in a non-existent state, received positions in a fictitious government, and outfitted ships bound for the shores of a land that was merely a figment of his imagination. Thousands of people staked everything, their homes, savings, and futures, on the elusive dream of a tropical paradise. This is not just a story of a grand swindle. It's an account of how one beautiful lie, told with diabolical persuasiveness, can make the world believe in a miracle and lead a great nation to the brink of ruin. His name was Gregor MacGregor. From childhood, he learned a harsh lesson. In this world, it doesn't matter who you are. All that matters is who people believe you to be. The son of a humble banker, he grew up among those for whom lineage mattered more than any talent. He witnessed untalented heirs receiving positions he could only dream of, and doors closing to him simply because blue blood didn't flow through his veins. This injustice, etched into the fabric of society, poisoned his soul. He eventually realized that if the rules were written by others to ensure his constant defeat, he simply had to stop playing by them. He needed to create his own game, with his own board, his own pieces, and his own grand prize. He decided his title would sound grander than any royal one, and his country would become more real than Britain itself. He chose the perfect moment. Britain had just defeated Napoleon, but behind the triumph lay a bitter truth. Victory wasn't just about parades, it meant colossal debt, thousands of unemployed soldiers on the streets, and an economy on the verge of collapse. Old money clung to its estates, while new money desperately sought ways to get rich quickly, at any cost. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, an empire was crumbling. Spain was losing its South American colonies, and blank spaces, uncharted lands full of mystery and promise, appeared on world maps. Only fragments of rumors emerged from these regions, tales of untold treasures and lands where gold lay underfoot. In a world without telegraphs or the internet, verification was impossible. For a man determined to create his own reality, this wasn't chaos, it was a blank canvas on which he could paint anything he desired. And MacGregor began to paint. He traveled to South America, where the War of Independence was a bloody carnival, an ideal setting for a man without rules. There, with a handful of mercenaries, he audaciously seized an entire island from the Spanish crown. He then stormed Portobello, an impregnable fortress that had repelled pirate fleets for centuries. He captured it with a mere 200 men, convincing the multi-thousand-strong garrison that his army was close behind. Then, at the peak of his glory, he made his masterstroke. He returned to London not merely as a war hero, but with a treaty purportedly signed by a local tribal king. This document granted him 8 million acres of land and a hereditary princely title. He was no longer an adventurer, he was now the cacique of Poyais. He then commenced his grand performance. In the heart of London, amidst the embassies of real empires, he opened the legation of Poyais. It was no adventurer's storefront, it was the facade of a sovereign government. He hired respectable clerks, created a coat of arms and a flag, and printed land certificates on expensive paper, complete with wax seals. But his primary weapon was a book, a 350-page guide to Poyais, in which he meticulously described everything from its climate and fertile soil to the capital's opera house, with the precision of a scholar. He didn't mesmerize crowds, he listened to each person individually, offering them exactly what they dreamed of. To the landless farmer, a vast estate. To the humble clerk, a ministerial post. He wasn't selling land, he was selling a new, improved version of their own lives. MacGregor understood the core secret. People would believe the most incredible lies if presented with mundane, convincing details. Bureaucracy was his magic. But even the most elaborate magic is powerless without patrons. He found them in the heart of the city of London. Bankers willing to ignore the truth for a share of the £200,000 loan MacGregor issued on behalf of Poyais. They asked no probing questions, seeing only the interest, not a phantom country. Their respectability became his shield. Yet, amidst this chorus of enthusiastic voices, a discordant note emerged. A journalist whose name history has nearly erased began asking questions. He spoke with sailors who had visited those regions, read reports, and proclaimed in the pages of his cheap newspaper, The emperor had no clothes, and his country was an impassable swamp. MacGregor didn't argue, he destroyed him. With the help of his influential friends, he denounced the journalist as a slanderer and an envious detractor. London believed not the unknown truth-teller, but the respectable gentleman in expensive coats. The truth was too inconvenient and offered no profit. The great deception received the blessing of those who controlled the empire's money. And so, the first ships set sail from England. On board were not speculators, but families, cobblers, farmers, teachers, who had sold everything for a ticket to a new life. They carried seeds, tools, and Poyais currency, which they had exchanged for their last remaining pounds. But instead of the promised capital city with an opera house, they found only impenetrable jungle and malarial swamps. There were no roads, no homes, no port, just hostile nature and despair. Barely a third of the 250 settlers survived. When their ghostly, emaciated figures disembarked at a London dock, their stories were more terrifying than any slander. MacGregor could destroy a journalist, but he could not silence the dead. His paper empire, built on ink and lies, collided with the only force that could not be bribed or intimidated: reality. London erupted. The Poyais stock bubble burst overnight, burying thousands of lives under its ruins. Bonds that had commanded gold just yesterday turned into worthless paper. £200,000 sterling, an enormous sum for that era, had dissolved into MacGregor's estates, carriages, and lavish receptions. He didn't hide the money, he spent it, transforming others' hopes into his own comfort. The scandal was so deafening that it shook the foundations of the British Empire. Parliament was forced to rewrite financial laws, permanently prohibiting loans to non-existent states. MacGregor's grand swindle left behind not only ruined families and fresh graves, but also set a precedent that changed the rules of the game in global markets. From then on, to sell a dream, one had to prove it existed, at least on a map. And what of MacGregor himself? Neither the gallows nor debtor's prison awaited him. This is the central, most cruel paradox of his story. He escaped, fleeing to France, where he again attempted to sell his non-existent country. He was tried but acquitted. He died a natural death, held in honor as a hero of the Venezuelan War of Independence. The boy who despised a world of hereditary titles and empty ranks ultimately created a title for himself that outlasted centuries. History remembers the name Cacique of Poyais better than the names of hundreds of real kings. He lost the battle for land but won the war for immortality. For his greatest creation was not Poyais itself. His greatest creation was the myth of Gregor MacGregor, a story that proves the most enduring empire is not one built of stone, but one woven from human hopes.